holly and the ivy now both are well full grown. Of all the trees that are in the wood, the holly bears a crown. The holly bears a blossom as white a lily flower. So we celebrate the newfound joy as we sing with glorious sound. Oh, the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the instruments and the singing in the choir. The holly and the ivy now both are grown. Of all the trees that are in the wood, the holly bears a crown. Still, 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 one can hear the falling snow. For all is hushed, the world is sleeping. Holy star is vigil keeping. Still, 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 one can hear the falling snow.
About River Stillwood when I was working on the Springfield campus of the NPR station there as a reporter. My boss and mentor, Missy Shelton-Belote, pulled me aside and said, you know, I'm going to take you off of politics and healthcare to do a feature story, which sounded great to me. We all get tired of politics, even reporters. And she said, there's a woman in the woods in rural Douglas County, and I want you to go see what she's up to. All I know is she is building a cabin by hand, and she's starting to write this column for the newspaper there, the Douglas County Herald. So I said, okay. I went out, and I found River Stillwood was indeed building a cabin by hand. Now, River Stillwood had just recently moved to the rural Ozarks. A few months before that, she had been a big-time news reporter in San Diego, where she covered the legal field. And she had always had a dream of living in the woods. And so one day she was at work in the newsroom, and obviously burnt out because she was shopping on eBay. And she saw a parcel of undeveloped land in the Ozarks, and she bid on it, and she won the bid. And the down payment was $72. She told her colleagues, she told her coworkers, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm going to the woods. And she said all of them thought she was nuts, except one guy. He sent her an email to say, I think you're the sanest person I've ever met. So out she came. I became an Ozarker. It was such rough terrain, I couldn't even get there in a normal car. She came to meet me, and we hiked by foot back to her cabin. But indeed, she began writing this column for the Douglas County Herald. She raised chickens and rabbits and turkeys and lambs. And in a tribute to her father, who she says is very, very politically conservative, she named one of her lambs Rush Lambaugh. She began raising these animals like they were her kids. She drove a tractor. She rescued baby chicks from a big black snake. And with every column, she became more and more endearing to the locals here. But then she began having uncontrollable uterine bleeding, and the nearest hospital was Ozarks Medical Center. So here she came, she was admitted, and she underwent a procedure to try to stop the bleeding. But the next day, her doctor came to her right here in this building and said to her, River, the reason I wanted you to stay another night was because when we went in to do the ablation, we found cancer. And her cancer had already penetrated the uterine walls, the lower uterine and cervix. Suddenly, she told me she began to see everything in terms of time remaining. She began an aggressive regime of chemotherapy and radiation, but before long, she couldn't even carry a load of firewood, and she couldn't carry a bucket of water from the stream. So with a broken heart, she locked up her homestead and she moved into an apartment in Mountain Grove. And what she did now was so brave and inspiring, what she did then. She knew her long, silky brown hair was going to fall out. So she said, you know what, I can be very depressed about this, or I can go into it guns blazing. So she got it cut off and she donated it to Locks of Love, which makes wigs for children and other people who are going through chemo and radiation treatment. But when she was waiting for the rest of her hair to fall out, she got this idea. She said, you know what, I'm going to email all of my friends and family and we're going to start a poll. And the person who guesses the closest date to when my hair falls out in clumps is going to get all the money. Everyone's going to pitch in $1, and we're all going to go in this together. And so her twin brother said, that's not funny, I can't do that. But her mom said, I'm in, and her 90-year-old grandmother won the pot. I wanted to read you just a few words of River's own writing after her treatment was well underway. She wrote this in her column. All of the touchstones have changed. My beautiful long hair is long gone, as are my eyebrows, most of my eyelashes, even my nose hairs. Other than a few straggling hangers-on, I'm as bald as a stone. 2 fresh purple scars and the hard bump of the chemo port now mar my once smooth middle-aged trunk. I'm 20 plus pounds lighter. My hard-earned muscles have turned soft and saggy. The energy and stamina I enjoyed last autumn have disappeared. Now, I can barely walk from Walmart's garden department to the produce section without having to stop and catch my breath. River came to realize what those of us who have been through difficult experiences in life are blessed to learn, and that is that her magnum opus is not her successful journalism career or even her cabin. And her greatest work is her life and what she gives to others. And River, I'm glad to say, has been cancer-free for many years now. She credits OMC. She credits OMC with some of the most important milestones in her journey, and this is the point I really want you to take home, she's contributing again to others in this community, and she's only able to do that because she's well, and she's healthy. And that's how health issues are in our lives. They come and they go. And this hospital, the little hospital that could, it sees us through it all, the highs and the lows and the in-betweens. And River right now she's at a high point, but the mentor, the former boss that I told you about at the beginning of that story, was diagnosed 2 weeks ago with ovarian cancer. She's in her 2nd week of chemo treatment right now at a rural medical facility over in eastern Tennessee, and she has asked those of you who are praying to remember her. There's a light, there will be tonight on tonight's tree in honor of both of these remarkable women. Before I wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't mention another patient whose life this hospital has likely saved twice, and that's me. 4 years ago, I was at work and I fell unconscious. I was fading in and out of consciousness on my office floor over in Catlett Hall at the university here. My dear friend rushed me to this emergency department where my valiant doctor, Dr. Brian Israel, rushed over, made a very difficult and quick judgment call on my condition, which turned out to include internal bleeding. He made a judgment call and he was spot on. He did that twice. Your emergency staff here were efficient and kind in a whirlwind of activity. When it was time to wheel over to the surgical unit, I still remember well the anesthesiology staff. I remember Mike, I remember Chastity out prepping me for surgery. the nurses and the aides, they comforted me. And at a follow-up visit afterward, this is what really stood out to me. I received medical care in many places in some of what are considered the world's greatest cities. But what set this experience apart was the compassion. At the follow-up appointment, Dr. Israel took 45 minutes to stay after my appointment and go through all of my questions. I had a list, I am that patient, and patiently answer all of my questions. It was light, the sun was shining when I went in, and it was dark when he and his staff got to go home that night because of me. And my questions ranged from biology to the grief journey, and he answered every single one. And that's what this hospital does. It preserves and it improves and it saves and it enriches lives. And it does so with a degree of compassion. And I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of all of the people who have contributed to make this hospital what it is. I don't have to tell you that these are challenging times for rural hospitals like this one. This hospital sees a disproportionate share of low-income and elderly patients. And due to its geography, it has some really unique challenges, and that's why it needs us. It needs our support as volunteers. The foundation needs our support financially. They need us to play a part in lifting this institution up.
The Cobb family. Reed just got back from Wonders of Wildlife.
Every year about this time, most of us reflect a little bit on the past year and on all of the years that have already gone by. I know that I have been blessed. That doesn't mean life hasn't thrown a curveball every once in a while, but my blessings far outweigh those times when life just didn't work out the way I wanted. For that, I'm immensely grateful. The other day, I had the chance to spend the day with my mom and dad. They're 87, and I can't tell you my mom's age, but my dad's 87. We went to a rendition of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol at Silver Dollar City. If you remember the story, Ebenezer Scrooge, the guy who said "bah humbug," everybody remember that, is visited by the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. As he discovered the meaning of a very good life, he realized he needed to forgive and be forgiven, to give more than he received, to live a life of gratitude, and to give the gift of time. And whether we've seen the Christmas Carol in the past few weeks or in the past few years, the message is a good one and a good reminder for all of us to remember. Forgive yourself and allow yourself to be forgiven. Forgive others and allow yourself to be forgiven. Always give more than you receive, and happiness you shall find. Be grateful, live a life of gratitude, especially for those we are closest to. Give the gift of time, There is only so much. We are very grateful each of you choose to spend the time with Ozarks Medical Center all the time, but especially tonight. Thank you for helping us serve and take care of patients, each other's, and the entire community. We are blessed by your presence, your commitment, and your service. I also want to thank all of the caregivers, whether you care for others at home or whether you care for patients here. You are the caregivers of the world, and you may never know the profound impact you can have on somebody else's life. On behalf of all of us at OMC, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.